Hi, my name is Ceci Garrett, and I'm a clinical social worker who practices in the state of Washington offering telehealth. I specialize in treating hoarding disorder, but more than that, I'm a person who grew up with a parent who hoards. One of the biggest things that happens in my professional practice is that I get contacted by family members who are concerned about their parent who hoards. There's a lot of information on the internet about hoarding, but there are very few resources directed to those of us who grew up in a home where every part of our environment and our learning was influenced by the mental health disorder that is called hoarding disorder. A lot of the information out there talks about becoming a motivator to get your parent into treatment. And I'm 100% on board with helping our family members get help. But I think that there's also a desperate need. If you're in this moment and you're desperately trying to get your family member help, there's also a desperate need for you to recognize that growing up in a household where a parent has a mental health disorder has probably deeply impacted you. More than the fact that it's deeply impacted you, it probably means that how you were raised, the things that were allowed and not allowed, the expectations of what could and couldn't happen in your home were not healthy. You were often told what to think and feel. You were given little space to have your own area of the house. And many people, like myself, were either covertly or even sometimes overtly told that they were at fault. It was my responsibility that my mom had the problems that she had. And that's a burden that most of us carry for a really long time. I think I was in my 20s, well into my 20s, before a family member told me that, in fact, my mom's hoarding behaviors started long, long before I was born. That was the first time I had any evidence that the way I was growing up actually wasn't about me. I grew up in a single parent household. Only one parent. My father was not a part of my life. I had family members who were close by, who were involved at some level. But a lot of what happened, a lot of the formative pieces, a lot of the things that really stuck with me in my childhood were the messages that my mother gave to me, either through her words or through her actions. And let's be clear, the CDC and Kaiser Permanente did a study, and one of the factors that they list as an adverse childhood experience is having a parent with a mental illness. So if you grew up in a home where your parent was hoarding, and we also know the hoarding is a comorbid disorder, which means that it doesn't happen by itself. There are other mental health challenges. We know that social anxiety is common for some. We know that bipolar is common, major depression. But what we don't know is how many personality disorders also are comorbid. Early on, hoarding was actually considered a factor of either OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCPD, obsessive compulsive personality disorder. And to be clear, OCPD makes for a very unhealthy and detrimental family environment. Now, that's not to say that every person who hoards has OCPD. But I'm going to challenge you that if you're watching this because you're in pain and you desperately want your parents to change, you want them to get help, perhaps they do have some sort of personality disorder. Perhaps they have complex mental health challenges. I would say that my mom probably qualifies for 3 or 4 diagnoses. I won't diagnose her. That's inappropriate. But here's what I want you to know. Your job is not to get your parent to get help. Your job is not even to be a motivator. Your job is to become the best you, the healthiest version of you that you can become, and to recognize that sometimes that means that we have to set hard boundaries and we have to walk away from our parents. This isn't easy. Lots of people aren't going to understand when we set these boundaries. As a professional who's spent more than the last decade working with this population, those who hoard, and their family members, and community service providers and agencies, I've been asked specifically to speak on the traumatic impacts for those who hoard, as well as their family members, and then been invalidated by the same people who asked me to speak. It hurts, but it doesn't make the reality any less meaningful that how I grew up hurt me also, and that I have every right to say, no, I'm not responsible for my mother's hoarding. I'm not responsible for my mother's mental health. I'm not responsible for cleaning up my mother's home. I'm not even responsible to be a supportive part of a team if it's not within a healthy setting for me. If you're in that place right now, I say this with deep compassion because I've been there. Is getting your parent help really what's best for you? Or is it time to maybe consider that it's had a deep impact on you, and the best thing that you can do for your parent is to get better for yourself, to be the best you that you can be, and to lead a healthier life? It's hard. Nobody's denying that. I challenge you though, as somebody who specializes in hoarding, it's an exceptionally difficult disorder to treat. I find it very fulfilling, but I also find it extremely painful and challenging to work with my own mother. You don't have to. It's okay if all you have today is to say, I can't, to walk away, and to tell your parent, to tell a community member, to tell another family member, you can't. That's okay. You were not born into this world to remedy your parents' hoarding. You have a voice, you have a story, and that's what matters most. I hope you find the strength to find that space within yourself, to reach out to a therapist if needed, and to start taking on your own path, writing your own story. And believe it or not, it doesn't have to be filled with parental hoarding.